Batya Ungar-Sargon has been an idiot for a very long time. But in this clip, she just reconfirms to each and every single one of us how much of an idiot she actually is. So much to the point that the suggestion that it is that she makes in this clip has the entire CNN panel baffled, dumbfounded, and completely confused. Let's watch the clip in full. I'm going to give you guys my thoughts towards the end.
Good evening. I'm Abby Phillip in New York. Tonight, he's losing control. Donald Trump's party is starting to rebuke him left and right as he becomes more unpopular, along with his war, his economy, and his distractions. Over the last few days, Republicans have blasted his choice to lead the nation's intelligence agencies, choosing a man with no experience and revenge on his mind. Senate Republicans formally rejected any ballroom funding from their immigration bill. And even Trump's DOJ is backing off the $1.8 billion fund to compensate allies, which Trump says isn't over. And perhaps the most extraordinary rebuke, the House just voted to limit his war powers in Iran, with 4 Republicans joining Democrats in that vote. Now, it seemed that the things were getting rougher, and the more unglued the president seemed to be today. That meltdown was pretty evident in the Oval Office, from sexist attacks to obsessing over his many renovation projects. The president losing this war powers vote in the House, I think, is a story of a couple of things. One, he's getting more unpopular with the public. This war is unpopular. But also, when you look at some of the people who voted against it, he's making enemies left and right in his own base in Congress, and that's showing up in some of these votes.
I mean, not in this vote. You have, of 4 Republicans who decided to vote for this resolution, 2 of them are in swing districts, and I think that was a motivating factor. I mean, losing Thomas Massey, I don't think tells you anything really.
But hey,
about
when
the
you have a slim majority,
yeah,
4 is all
no
you
doubt.
need. That's the point. It's not about what an ideal scenario it is.
Sure.
It's what do you need in order to get the vote?
But it's not a huge shift from where the Republicans generally
need to be, is my point. Yeah.
No. I agree with you on that. I'm simply saying it doesn't tell us much about the direction of the Republican Party and whether or not he's, quote unquote, lost control here. You lost 4 votes. 2 of them you expected to lose. 2 of them you lost for political purposes. It doesn't necessarily change the direction right now of where things stand. It can in the long term, but we'll see what ends up happening in the next steps. I think Marco Rubio, obviously made the comments yesterday and again today about the war being over. I think they're setting up for this off-ramp in a more meaningful way. The bigger problem I think we face now here is we want this all to be over. The president wants this to be over as well. You've just made it a lot easier for Iran now to not take the negotiating seriously, because now they're looking at what's happening in the House and saying we can wait this out just a little bit longer. He's lost the political backing that he had from his own party. We're going to continue to just dig in here, and that's a larger problem.
Well, I think it's less about Trump and it's more about, Trump is unpopular, this war is unpopular, but we are now just 5 months away from a general election. Some of the primaries are now over, so they have switched over to general election campaigning, and this war nobody likes. And look, Marco Rubio can say as many times as he wants in as many languages as he knows that this war is over. I don't know any American who feels that the war is over. And I don't think Americans are going to feel that the war is over when we're still seeing headlines about bombs in Kuwait and bombs in Lebanon and conversations with Netanyahu, and the gas prices are through the roof and the fertilizer prices are through the roof, and people can't make ends meet. So people don't feel that the war is over, do not believe that the war is over, and elections are in 5 months.
Yeah. Let me play that exchange that Marco Rubio had with Sarah Jacobs on Capitol Hill today.
If the war is over, I have a simple question. Who won?
First of all, epic fury is over, which is what you would consider the war. That operation is
So you
concluded.
agree it's a war, then?
No, those are hostilities. They called it a war.
Okay, fine. We're taking you at your word. The war is over. Who won?
Well, first of all, you're not taking me at my word. It's a fact. We're no longer conducting sustained strikes inside of Iran to degrade their military because epic fury is over. The second point is on the question of who won, I can tell you this. We defined victory as destroying their defense industrial base, significantly reducing the number of missile launchers that they possess, significantly reducing their stockpile of drones. And we achieved all of those, in addition to destroying what they had left of an air force and wiping out their entire conventional Navy. Those are all gone. So I consider that victory.
That's not victory. In fact, that's a lie.
And that's
Because
not how they were defining it 4 months ago.
The number one objective of going to Iran was making sure to prevent them from getting a nuclear weapon. Everybody around this table agrees that Iran does not deserve or need to have a nuclear weapon. The entire world actually probably agrees with that sentiment, or the overarching majority of them. He didn't articulate that one time in anything that he said. You know why? Because Iran was further away from a nuclear weapon under the JCPOA than they are today. And that's what this White House doesn't want you to understand. This is a failure when your number one objective is something that your Secretary of State did not even mention. We talked about the unpopularity of the president. I disagree with everybody else. The president is extremely popular with his base, period. But that's why you have all of these MAGA Republicans who are running in these general elections who are caught between a rock and a hard place, because you cannot be popular with the American people and be popular within MAGA. Those two things right now in this country cannot coexist, because people are hurting.
I just want to point out, too, that something that you touched on was the biggest thing that Trump has been out there saying is that Iran cannot get a nuclear weapon, which is something I agree with wholeheartedly. But just today, the International Atomic Energy Agency said that the risk of Iran acquiring a nuclear weapon is much higher today than it was before the war. So if the war is somehow over, then why is the risk higher for them to acquire a nuclear weapon? So it doesn't seem like the war is in fact over. And then you couple that with the fact that I believe we're in a much worse position than we were before we entered this war, whether you look at gas prices skyrocketing, the U.S. being more isolated than ever before. We upset a lot of our allies by not really tipping them off to our plan to go after Iran. And I think that we're in a much weaker position. So actually, in fact, I can't see a place in which the war is over, no matter how many times Marco Rubio wants to speak it into existence.
If it's over and we did not meet our number one objective, the thing that Donald Trump hates to hear the most is that we lost. If this war is over and we did not accomplish our number one objective, we lost. The fact is, just as you stated, everybody understands the reason we went to Iran supposedly was to keep them from getting a nuclear weapon. And the Secretary of State today testified, and he didn't even mention that as one of the accomplished goals.
So, Batya, if none of that happens, if they say the war is over, but the war is really not over because we're not back to where we were before, the Strait of Hormuz is still closed, and Iran is still not prevented from having a nuclear weapon, how long will MAGA stand by this conflict?
Well, we're currently in a ceasefire in which the president is engaged in active negotiations to achieve what I totally agree with Bakari was the main objective of Operation Epic Fury. So the hostilities are over, we're in a ceasefire, and we are trying to achieve a deal that would prevent them from
we are still shooting at each other.
Because
we bombed Iran 2 days ago. They are striking their allies now, so there's still hostilities.
Yeah, Trump was asked in the Oval Office how he defines a ceasefire, and he said, I think very funnily and very accurately, well, in that area of the world, it means you're shooting at each other a little bit less vigorously or something along those lines. I think that's accurate. So we don't know how this is going to end. The problem is that the American people who voted for Donald Trump are hurting. They are bearing the cost of this war disproportionately because they are the ones struggling to pay for gas and struggling to pay for food. And this is a big problem for the president, and I don't know how aware he is of that. So he has two competing imperatives. He cannot get out without some sort of deal that is better than the JCPOA, and he has to somehow alleviate the pain and the suffering of working class Americans. In my view, the best way to do that is a stimulus check, and I don't know why this isn't on the table at all. I think he needs to give people some sort of a tariff rebate in order to get them through the summer months.
A tariff rebate, Batya?
Yeah, tariff rebate.
How about just get rid of the tariffs?
Well, we brought in 200.
Weren't you an advocate for the tariffs?
Yes, exactly.
So then why are you asking for a rebate?
That's exactly what a rebate is.
You can't give a stimulus check while you haven't done anything.
We brought in $200 billion in tariffs, and we should now take some of that money and give it to Americans who are struggling to pay for gas and groceries.
Actually have to already be refunded because
most
of them were illegal.
That's actually, it's not clear that they have to be refunded.
They are already being, we know that they are already being refunded. The refunds are happening
Well,
right now.
no, companies are suing for refunds, but it's not clear that they're going to get them.
But again,
but we brought in a bunch of money.
Tariffs are a good idea.
Yeah. I'm very glad we have that money.
Why would you have to rebate the money?
No, I mean,
in stimulus checks. That doesn't
What do you mean rebate the money? I'm saying we brought in a whole bunch of money And we should now give that to working class Americans who are struggling to pay for gas.
But Trump thinks
at
that
a
the
time
affordability
when
crisis
the
is a hoax,
reason
so he
that
probably
gas
wouldn't
is
even be for
high
something
is
like
for
that,
a
'cause he won't
very
even
noble
acknowledge that
cause,
there's an
which
issue.
is ensuring that the Iranians
we
never get a
made things
nuclear weapon.
high through the tariffs, and then we're going to
No,
turn
we
those
made
tariffs.
things high
No,
through
things are-
Iran.
No, things
No,
are, no,
through Iran.
no, things were
No.
high before
Gas
Iran.
was under
There were
$3
goods
a
that were high
gallon.
before Iran
Gas
because
was
of the
under
tariffs.
$3 a
Groceries
gallon.
were high
I'm talking about
before
gas
Iran.
and no,
Well,
that's
I'm
not
talking
true.
about. I'm talking about a bunch of things. I'm talking about your refrigerator. I'm talking about
price
cars.
index.
I'm talking about a bunch
The
of stuff.
producer price index.
I mean, I don't know what bubble you live in where you think that
All
the
right.
tariffs
I'm just
didn't
telling you
increase prices.
what the data
I don't know what
shows.
bubble you live in.
Hold on, Anna. Let me let her finish, and then I'll let you
was
respond so we can
down
all hear
before
what's going on.
Iran. Groceries and gas are now up because of Iran. Iran, as we all agree, ensuring that they not achieve a nuclear weapon is a noble goal. So Trump needs the leeway to get a good
Inflation
deal.
was up before Iran.
Let's
No,
give
it
him
wasn't.
another
It was
Trump
not.
check. Yeah,
It was not. It was
No,
down.
prices were clearly
They were
coming
down,
down
and
on the
gas
whole.
was
There
under
were some
$3 a gallon.
elements that were up. There's no doubt about that. But we're saying on average, on the whole, things were down. That is a fact.
But can we talk about just the strategy of Iran? Because what I haven't understood is how you go to war. Pete Heskett's Secretary Rubio and others, and you don't anticipate that they're going to close the Strait of Hormuz, which is a great deal. It bears a great deal of responsibility for the
Why do you
prices
think
that
they didn't anticipate it? Of course they knew they were going to close the street.
because you just said we needed refunds. I mean, I don't understand how you can articulate one thing that says that the pain of the American people is unbearable, that Republicans are now touting for refund checks.
You're conflating two things, I think, in that case. I mean,
Actually, I'm the only one
the
touting
president
that,
has clearly
unfortunately.
said multiple times that he understood, and they understood that there was risk. Marco Rubio made that point, I think, earlier today. They knew that there were going to be some risks economically and politically, but
Well, I
they
will
chose
say
to make
this.
this decision
I
because
will
they
say
think it's
this.
best for this world.
Trump has
to not have them
also
have
said
Iran.
that they didn't think that they would shut down the Strait of Hormuz. He did say that.
Yes, he did, but that does
So-
not mean
so
that they
what
did
Bakari's
not
saying
think
is
that
not
that
based
was a
on nothing.
possibility.
Well, no, I mean, he
Well,
said
they were given that
surprised.
information.
And he has also said, he also said
The
there would be
reporting was
regime
also
change.
that they
He
were
said
aware of that as a
Iranians
possibility.
would take their country back. He said that after they killed the Ayatollah, he said that there had been regime change. And I don't know anybody who thinks that there had been regime change. They may have other names, they may have other titles, but it is still the same Iranian regime.
And of course, you know, the president makes this decision to go into this war thinking that Iran is just going to cave instantly, and they don't. And that's why we're still here several months later. But one other thing about today, you know, the president in the Oval Office really lost it on several occasions, including to our colleague, Caitlin Collins, accusing her again of not smiling for whatever reason. Sarah, you worked for him. What's behind it?
I will say that during my time working as deputy press secretary in the first Trump administration, Caitlin Collins was the one reporter that scared Kayleigh McEnany and President Trump the most. There would be times where Kayleigh McEnany wouldn't even call on Caitlin Collins at press conferences, at press briefings, because she didn't want to answer the questions, because Caitlin Collins is a very, very good reporter. She's the best at what she does. And I think that's why you see Trump go after her more ferociously than any other reporter in that room. And it is disgusting to watch him tell a woman that she needs to smile while doing her job. I've seen Caitlin smile plenty of times, but when she's asking someone a hard-hitting question, I don't think that that means that she has to smile while doing it. And he brings it up time and time again, and it's these misogynistic attacks, not just against Caitlin. You know, he told her today to be quiet while she tried to ask a follow-up question. We've seen him say, "Quiet, piggy," to a female reporter. Another great female reporter, I will add, someone I worked with during my time in the first Trump administration. And so I wish that this wasn't normalized and that we weren't desensitized to this type of behavior from the president, but it really is appalling. And I just want to give, you know, kudos to Caitlin Collins.
He called another reporter, said to her, "Are you stupid or something?" I mean, just, it's time after time after time. And I'll tell you, one of the things that really bothers me is that there is not more solidarity and outrage from the press in that room. Because I would like to think that if I was in that room and my colleague was being treated that way, I would say, "Screw you, I'm leaving, you go ahead and you cover yourself. Leave yourself here with OAN and with Fox News and let that be what your national coverage is." And that's why I feel that it is so ridiculous and hypocritical for people to go sit at a White House Correspondents' Dinner where Donald Trump is speaking, and we're supposed to be celebrating the free press, when practically on a weekly basis we have to hear his rants against women who are doing their jobs as journalists. And that is why, even though it's just been rescheduled, I refuse to go. I refuse to go then, and I refuse to go now, because it makes no damn sense.
All right, we'll leave it there.
So, like I said at the top of the show, Batya is a donut. She always has been a donut. Now, the fact that it is that she's trying to subscribe a stimulus check to be the thing that's going to help Americans makes absolutely no sense. The pain is caused by the tariffs. So a check isn't going to undo that. It's simply just going to paper over the cracks while the policies that continue to drive up inflation and make life harder for working Americans continues. So it just makes absolutely no sense. Now, it's also interesting to note, Republicans, including Trump's own base, have been the individuals that blamed the C-19 stimulus checks for causing inflationary problems that are still having effects in the United States today. So doing it again would be hypocritical, and it would likely reignite inflation, driving it up even more. So that even makes no sense. The fact that it is that she thinks that it's even fiscally responsible to do just makes no sense once again. It's almost like the government would be taxing the government would be taxing Americans through tariffs, because it is the Americans, the American people that pay the tariffs, and then they will be handing some of that very money back. That is inefficient. It's just a weird redistribution loop, and it just makes no sense. You lose value just by simply going through this process, so it just makes no sense whatsoever. Now, the argument that she thinks that this would make sense to do is just dumb. Why? Because look how many times Donald Trump has promised checks and never delivered them. Think about it. This is an individual who said it so many times. Remember the Doge dividend of $5,000 per household and $2,000 tariff rebate checks? Do you guys remember those? None of them have come to anything. None of them have materialized. And that should be no surprise. So betting on this as relief is just Batya just showing her naivety when it comes to it. And I'll say this lastly. If this was to become something, it would literally just be a reward for policy that has been designed, which is bad for the economy. If the Iran war and tariffs are causing economic hardship, the correct response is to reassess both, stop the war in Iran, and then also remove the tariffs, not to create a political safety net that is literally going to allow the administration to avoid accountability for their consequences. Unfortunately, what's happening to the American people right now is the consequence of Donald Trump's actions and his administrations. And guess what? Him and his administration are going to pay the price, are going to be held accountable at the ballot box as a result of what he's chosen to do. Batya is saying to redistribute checks to the American public. Guess what? Yes, some people may be happy with it. Yes, some people may turn around and say, oh, you know what, I'm going to change my vote based off of that. But you're rewarding bad policy that, guess what? They just know in the future, if they need to do something that's deeply unpopular, guess what they'll do? They'll just pay people to shut them up and to have them on their side. Ridiculous idea. Let me know your guys' thoughts down in the comment section below. Do the usual stuff. Hit subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, and also hype up the video as well. See you guys in the next one.